A very good afternoon, friends and colleagues. And before I begin, I wish to thank the many donors and the many volunteers who have helped us in this program. There is a global concern about the increasing number of elderly people with dementia. So this is not just a local concern here in Singapore, but also a concern in North America, Europe, China, Japan, even Malaysia. So for this lecture, I shall focus on three areas: the good news of aging, the challenges of aging, and how we can stem the tide of dementia. I'd like to state from the outset that it is impossible to prevent all cases of dementia. Every year in Singapore, we have approximately 2,500 new cases. And if we are able to prevent or delay just 10%, that's 250 cases. And that would be tremendous. And if you're going to forget many things I'm going to tell you today, it doesn't really matter. Just remember a very important fact. And the fact is, in Singapore today, there is a dementia prevention program, and it is under the aegis or the umbrella of the Age Well Every Day. I'll now move on to the Age Well Every Day program, and I think it's important to prevent well, also important to diagnose well. And besides diagnosing well, you must manage well. I once had a referral from a private doctor, and the son of a patient who came to see me, a lawyer, and he told me that he brought the mother to see a private doctor, neurologist, and the doctor told him that, well, the mother has dementia, but there is no treatment. Then the lawyer was a bit upset, So what do you mean? You give my mother a diagnosis and there is no treatment? You may as well not diagnose dementia, then let her enjoy her life. So there are many things that we can do. And also to support the caregivers. Very important. I realize that if we don't support a caregiver, they'll come to my clinic and say, "Doctor, find me a home for my elderly father, mother. I'm tired of looking after him." And for all of us, important also when they grow old, what happens to them? When they are frail and the severe illness, severe phase, do we still continue to give powerful antibiotics, admit to intensive care? So there's always a question of dying well, ethical issues involved. Let's talk about dementia prevention in Singapore. I'll talk about historical development, the Jurong Ageing Study, and Age Well Every Day. The idea of dementia prevention started in 2004, 14 years ago. I was invited to give a lecture at Boston at Harvard. And I look at all what they've done in Harvard. They've done genetic studies of dementia, many things, but they haven't done anything on prevention. So I thought that would be a good idea. So you wonder, why is that from 2004 to 2012, 8 years, there's a large gap. It's because we were looking for people to help to finance this research. We couldn't find anybody. We went to. And very glad many of you believe in what we are doing. The research in dementia started in 1986, over 32 years ago. We were part of the World Health Study. And the study showed that dementia is only about 5% for people above 65 years old. Which means that if you are more positive, that you're 65 and above, 95% don't have dementia. But as you grow older, if you go 80 years old, then about 20% of dementia. When you hit 90, about 50% of dementia. A bigger issue is that of depression. And I was invited to give a lecture over the United Nations in New York. And I told the world body that it's depression that we have to look into. Because depression has a mortality, there's suicide. It's something that we must look into very seriously. In 1995, the suicide rate of elderly people in Singapore was the second highest in the world. And we did many things. I think that time, Mr. Yeo Chow Tong was the minister. Mr. Yeo is here. Yes. The minister, yes, right. The Minister of Health. Yeah. And we worked closely with Dr. Ling Sing Ling, and we told the Ministry of Health there should be day centers, helpline for the people, the call helpline under SAGE, and many things were done, and the suicide rate went down. The first country in the world to bring the suicide rate down. I was invited to give a lecture in Chicago, and they were surprised that it can be done. But lately, I'm told the number of cases has gone up again. I don't know what can be done. I was on television last year, and in a panel, and the audience asked, what's the cause of it? I really don't know. I told him, but I think the Age Well Everyday program something can do to prevent. So the Jurong Ageing Study started in 2012, a 10-year follow-up study. The idea of the dementia program was suggested by Professor Golegan and I, was discussed in the pantry of the department. So ideas doesn't mean you must sit in a boardroom and a lot of brainstorming. In a pantry, a cup of coffee, and we talk about things. He said, I work in the primary care. Something must be done in primary care. And so we think of get all the data we have in NUH here, we find that there's something that can be done for prevention. And research base was at the Jurong Point shopping mall. And someone asked me 2 weeks ago, she lives at Clementi, why do you go to Jurong so far away from NUH? You start at Clementi. This is the same dilemma we had 6 years ago. Because nobody want to give us space in Clementi, but the Jurong Point Mall management gave us a space about slightly a three-quarter size of this hall, and the rent is about 20K, and they paid for it. It's wonderful that they're eager to give some donation to us. And we published it in this distinguished British journal. We mentioned Jurong Point Shopping Mall. So the first shopping mall in the world, we mentioned the Lancet. Not even Harrods, So around the shopping mall area, 50 blocks of flat, we knock on every door. It's very tedious because it had to be a research, 50 blocks of flats. And those people with high risk, I invite them down to the Jurong Mall for a very detailed assessment, about 4 hours of assessment. And after that, for those who start a pilot study, first part of it is health education. And then we divide them into 4 groups: Tai Chi, mindfulness practice, music, and art, and follow them up. And this is what we found. We found that after 1 week, the depression rate and anxiety rate falls for music. And after 10 weeks, Tai Chi and art came down. But after 24 weeks, 6 months and a year, all of them improved in terms of the depression and anxiety. What more important is in terms of the memory. And this is what we found in memory. Whatever you do, 60% of them continue, almost 58% continue to decline. These people live alone in an HDB area around Jurong Point Mall. Many of them live alone. About 24% of them remain the same, but 22% improve, which is wonderful. Before we started research, we thought 10% would improve. My friends from Harvard came down to see what we're doing, and they told me quietly, I think there'll be 20% of improvement. So they're quite near to it. There's 20% of people improve. So we have 4 randomized controlled studies. One is to compare mindfulness practice and health education. This is what we showed. So before we start the research, we scan the brain. People with health education, mindfulness practice. And after 3 months, you see a change. There are more of these dots, which are nodal efficiency increase in the brain cells. There are more in people with mindfulness. And it's also corroborated with the Neuroscience test for memory and concentration. And also we found, very amazingly, we did the genetic studies. As we grow older, all our genes are encased in the chromosomes, and the tail of the chromosomes are called the telomeres. As we grow older, the telomeres become shorter and shorter until it comes to the end. Then the chromosome will unravel, the genes will spill out, and then you'll perish. But this is amazing because in this study, you see the telomeres length become longer and longer. But why they come down this way after some time? Here they did the mindfulness practice, every week. Here is every month. So people who do mindfulness, in fact, they do it every day. Another study, which is not here, also about the gut bacteria. There's a change in the gut bacteria. A lot of the data is in the foyer. At the end of this talk, you can walk to the foyer. And this, the principal investigator is Professor Mahindran. He's at the corner down there. She'll tell you more about this research. And then we did something to talk about head-to-head between art and music. And this is what we found. This data was released a month ago. There is improvement in terms of the concentration, the memory, and also the mood for art. The art is a bit different from other studies. The study on art therapy was in fact initiated by our friend, the ambassador, Professor Tommy Cole. About 10 years ago, Tommy was the chairman of the National Arts Council. And he sent me an email. I was reading something from New York Times that in America itself, they are asking some of patient dementia to go to the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, for a study to find out whether going to the museum, will stir up the brain cells and improve the quality of life. And he asked me, would you like to do a study in Singapore? Because I'm in charge of the museum, I can make arrangement. So I told Professor Tommy Cole, it's wonderful, but I want to do something better than what Americans do. I don't want to repeat what the Americans do. So I told him that we want to do something on prevention. Before you have the dementia, can we do something? So we do the brain scan before and after. Once again, the results are in the foyer. You can ask Professor Mahindran, who's the lead researcher. So you look at this painting. In the MoMA study, they brought old people to see paintings by Pablo Picasso. I don't think old people in Jurong keen about Pablo Picasso. So we showed her a painting like this. The painting is called Apa Nama Kamu. What is your name? And remember, because when I look at this painting, straight away I remember sometime in 1964 that we were told that in Malaysia that if you don't pass your O-level in national language Malay, you cannot go to university. So everybody go on to all these tuition classes. This one in Singapore. So people talk about, this is something about a scene in Chinatown, and there's a lot of reminiscence. An upshot of this good results in the audience is Mr. K.H. Tan. K.H. Tan asked me, why not do some Chinese painting? Chinese ink painting. So we thought about it. We're about to start this soon. It's called the Feng Zhang Tian Chinese ink painting. I'm a bit partial to Mr. Feng Zhang Tian because he was a Teochew like me. So Teochew a bit clannish, I support the clannish. And the daughter is here, Teresa is here, and she spent her whole years in Batu Pahat. So she donated about 30 of Mr. Feng's painting for auction, and Mr. K.H. Tan has raised about $400,000 for the research. The lead researcher for this is Pen Lei. But this idea came out, in fact, from a talk given by Professor Hong Hai. She was giving us a talk about a year ago, and she taught Chinese medicine about the qi. They said when you're doing calligraphy, you must have the qi down there. So I was having a walk with Mr. K.H. Tan on Sunday. I told him maybe calligraphy should be something we think about. Because I remember my father is a very good calligrapher. And when he's doing calligraphy, everyone is quiet, and they do it. And he'll tell you it's only one stroke down. We cannot go back and do one more time. It's the one stroke. So something. But K.H. Tan is wonderful. He says it's very difficult to do calligraphy. And I agree with him. So maybe a painting may be an easier way for people to do it. So this is coming up. And then in terms of the music, we thought that this would be wonderful because the music therapy, they're supposed to listen to the music and not to make any comments. But when the music comes on, everybody will join the singing. So it's always Teresa, Yet Liang, Tai Pia Water scene. Everybody wants to sing. But according to our research protocol, you cannot sing. Just listen and tell us when you hear the music, who is the composer, and various things. So the choir singing is the brainchild of Professor Maureen Sarkong. I think she was just here earlier on. She told us that she will raise some money from the NUS Seniors Choir for this study. And once again, it is a study in which very detailed assessment been done. And before the choir started, they have a brain scan done before 1 year and 2 years. And we are linked, the people in Cambridge, the Cambridge physicists were down here last week for discussion of the results. And they have a poster outside there. And they were suggesting that the singers should come up here on stage. They've sang for often, but they couldn't find the time, and we thought maybe they'll just perform and we'll play you the song. And this song is composed by Mr. Chuang, who is the audience, and the lyrics have certain meaning about environment. The wonderful thing about this project was that at the end of it, they came to know each other so well. So the social connectedness was tremendous. Many old people in Jurong live on their own. They don't know their neighbors. So this brought them all together. They understand each other. And the young old, those between 65 and 74, begin to look after the old, 75 and above. And it's wonderful. And I think when we do a research on gardening, it's something that we should enjoy. And gardening is something that I really enjoy, my pastime. In fact, when I was in A-levels in Moi, I wanted to become a botanist. My mother said, no, one of my sons must do medicine. Because my mother's brother was a doctor in Hong Kong, and she wanted to do medicine herself. And my grandfather told her that, no, we get married to this businessman from Malaysia. And so she harbored in her heart that one of the sons must do medicine. So how did we come to know about this project then? I happened to know the PERMSEC at a national development, a gentleman named Mr. Benny Lim, a family friend, a father from a Penang person, and we were all very close friends. He invited me for a lunch and told me that, the gardens by the bay, we have 2 million tourists, wonderful, So I told Benny that I'm very glad the old people in Jurong, visit gardens by the bay. After all, it's paid for by taxpayers, And so inflicted a bit of guilt into Benny, and so he agreed to help to finance this study on horticultural therapy. And this is very, very interesting because not only do they visit the gardens by the bay, they also plant vegetables and flowers. And also I noticed there's a difference between old people here in Singapore and the old people in England. Some friends told me they also have horticultural therapy in England. But in England, they prefer to plant roses and daffodils. But here in Singapore, old people are more pragmatic. They can eat something, they can eat a vegetable. Now, this study is done by, I think, Professor Roger Ho in the audience, and also Angelia and King Xiang. And they did something very interesting. They took the blood of these old people to find out their body immune system. They find the immune system improved in this interleukin level, and to reduce inflammation in the brain cells, which is something exciting. And upshot of this, the minister in the National Development, Mr. Desmond Lee, was very keen, and we started a therapeutic garden at Hort Park, and now there are going to be 10 more around the island. And this is wonderful for old people. And something we want to do in future will be the therapeutic forests. And I remember 2 years ago, we had to thank all our donors. It was lunchtime at Shangri-La Hotel, and went up to thank all of them. At the end of the lunch, there was a lady sitting alone, and she asked me, "Can I have a chat with you?" And I said, "Sure." And she told me, "All you're doing is wonderful in Jurong. What about the rest of the island?" And she was the wife of the other DPM, Mrs. Steele. And I said, "Yes, it's a great challenge for us. This is the holy grail of research, translational research. What we are doing can be translated to the rest of the island." Just like, for example, the discovery of penicillin by Alexander Fleming. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in the laboratory in London, but it's no use. He just kept to himself. He either put it in a capsule, get a company, extend it around the world to save people. So I think the same way that she told us that we should work closely, and so we work closely with the People Association. I'm glad the team is here, Thomas and Josephine. So we thought we have the Age Well Everyday program. It is a structured program. You have exercise, we have mindfulness, health education, including art and music. It is evidence-based, and also there's evaluation, meaning that every year someone will assess the person for memory, for heart, blood pressure, cholesterol, something done. I presented this to the headquarters over at People Association, and Mr. Lim Boon Heng was very happy. He said, "Hey, this is wonderful because there's so many programs in the country, but no outcome. No one measures outcome. We pour in millions of taxpayers' money, lots of programs. And this one is a good outcome coming up. And now we have over 8 centers. I didn't have a picture of Changpang. The Kominsan group here. And this group is from the Malay group at Tampines. At the end of 3 months, they have a ceremony, and it's wonderful. There's one 90-year-old lady, and the grandchildren and the children came for the ceremony. And they told me, "My grandmother had never been to school. We are so glad for him." So the response was tremendous. They're able to bring her together. So this is a program that's moving on to 8 other centers, but we are looking for volunteers. Professor John Wong remembers a line in the old scripture: "The harvest is plentiful, the workers few." Not enough. So we are working closely with the Singapore University of Social Sciences and the S3 or Stroke Support Station to have an online training program, and hope people would come up and help out. What about the future of AWE? I think that maybe we need more in terms of the VWOs helping out. Religious group, like the Kominsan group, the Buddhist group, the Christian group. There are many people who in the private groups are people who live along Holland Road. Some of my friends in Katong say, "What about us? All the research are done, or the centers are in the HDB area. What about all of us, a bit more middle-class people?" This is one example of a group that I know of quite well, and some of them are here. You see that every Sunday they are the Nordic walkers. In Norway, they go skiing, in the winter. In summer, they put a rubber at the end of a stick and they go walking. So this group meets every Sunday around Labrador area, and at the end they walk for 2 hours, and then they have coffee together. Then they talk about health issues, which is very good. And if middle-class people come together, they always must make a comment about government policy. But because of they have a retired minister in the group, they have a sense of decorum, middle-class respectability, we call it. They don't offend people. But the most difficult is how are you going to assess the outcome of these people? I asked them to do their own assessment, but it's only the mental health assessment which is more tricky. Not too sure how it can be done. But I think in future we cannot move on to the whole world of a whole island, but maybe we should nudge people along. And I believe in this nudge theory by Tedler and Sunstein. Tedler is an economist who won the Nobel Prize last year for behavioral economics. And giving people information to help them make decisions is something that we can think about. The whole program of all is very organic. We continue to grow because every time we go to a community center, people talk about Chinese medicine. And we're very glad we have Professor Hong Hai who give us some slides to help some of the issues that they're talking about. And one of the most topical issues that people talk about is diet. What about a diet? We have a team here, and some people talk, what about Mediterranean diet? What about the Okinawan diet? I told them there's nothing wrong with Singapore diet. See? So this group, you see, they've gone on to Malaysia, Boleh. And the big boss is sitting next to Mary. Right? He's here, down here. So I told him, our Fei Xiong, Mr. Tan's Fei Xiong, that maybe the kway teow, we don't need to have 10 prawns, just one enough. Don't have so much of grease, and laksa also, more vegetables. And so we're thinking about how we can improve diet for elderly people and do a long-term follow-up study. I think Linda is around here. Linda is one of the researchers for this program. Of the 3 centers in the world, Helsinki, Paris, and Singapore, only one center was selected for the World Congress in September, the Singapore group. Why is it so special? Because they told me that the Singapore study had almost zero funding from the government. It is, that's right. It is the community. The community, the donation comes from the community, the volunteers come from the community. So the tagline of this program is preventive medicine in the community, by the community, and for the community. So the World Health is so excited and asked whether we can go and present in September for the World Conference. So I told them we should not, in school we can be kiasu. This sort of thing we just share with other people. In fact, I was in Chengdu to give a talk, and the friends there told me they're so glad that you come and share with us. The Singaporeans come to China always to make money, and you're here. We are so glad, And remember 2 years ago, Singapore and China relationship was a bit frosty, And they're so glad it's something. In fact, I rang up Professor Tommy Koh, said we're doing a bit of medical diplomacy. And sometime in 2011, the 2011 was the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Revolution, when Sun Yat-sen overthrew the Qing dynasty. I was invited to give a talk in Beijing University, and I told them that I congratulated them for the 100th anniversary, and I told them, do you know that Sun Yat-sen even came to Singapore and Malaysia for a donation for the revolution? Even my granddad donated to the revolution. They were so happy, they applauded, they, wow, even here, far away, a small island, we've given something for the revolution. So, but I think I told my team that while people are doing dementia prevention now, we must move ahead. We must be at the frontier or the face of the coal mine and do something that no one has done before. So you do know that people do dementia, they think about the human brain, the old person. They forgot about everything about the person. So I told them, why not we do a total assessment, a holistic assessment of a person. Old person also have memory problem, visual problem, hearing problems, back problem. Why not a total assessment? Now above this building is some of the top talent in medicine in the island. So we're working closely with the cardiologist, Professor Ling, also from Batu Pahat, and another eye specialist, Caroline G, with something with ENT, Professor Wang, with Wilson, also a dentist, Professor of dentistry. Dental health is very important in old age, And also work across the campus, anthropologists, across in NTU, someone who is a sociologist, quite keen to join up. And our friends in Cambridge and MIT, and Harvard, are keen to come up together. We're doing a study at the Toyi area called the Hannah Center, working closely with the Presbyterian Community Services. So this is a center, the total assessment, and we're looking into a very important area, aging in place. Can someone grow old in a place, and we don't have to have dementia, we cut him off to a whole old people's home, Can they live where they are? I remember when I was working many years in England, when our daughter was the baby, we went to church, and all the people wanted to help us out, So I wondered, asked the people, where are all the young people? Oh, they're all gone to London. No one lives in the village. not far from Oxford, And they have their own informal network. The newspaper man is part of the network. One of them told me that he gave the newspaper every day. In one particular house, Mrs. Smith didn't collect the paper yesterday, and he felt like something was wrong. Knocked on the door, Mrs. Smith wasn't feeling well. So this informal network is wonderful. I'm not too sure how it's been done, but there's something that we are planning to do called the intergeneration care. Right? And this is the brainchild of Patricia. Patricia is somewhere in the audience here. Patricia Lee, who is from the National Archives. So we're going to ask the family people, the children to talk to the parents. Tell me your story. Sometimes we don't know. The parents are all both working. The kids are looked after, domestic helper. They don't know about their parents, whether this will build up bonding. And this is headed by Wilson. Wilson is somewhere in the audience. And also voluntarism. We find out whether through voluntarism, does it change your physiology? Does it improve? People think that after voluntarism, I'll be able to sleep better, maybe a blood pressure falls, and many things can be done. The research on voluntarism. And also where there is no psychiatrist. Lots of people under a lot of stress, a lot of school kids, elderly people. To get an appointment to see Professor John Wong is about 2 or 3 months. Can we train nurses to provide that kind of care? And when I was CEO of IMH, I told the Minister of Health, Mr. Lim Hin Kiang, there are a lot of nurses in IMH. I know that O-level results, better than doctors. Can they be trained to do master's and then do something in terms of psychotherapy? So these are things that we can think about. So you see, it is also changing not just behavior, but whether we can change human values. Human values of people. A sense of compassion, a sense of care for the community. If you want to talk about aging in place. About 200 years ago, Raffles came here. It was only a small little village. But today, Singapore is a metropolis. About 15 years ago, I was invited to give a lecture at Cambridge University. And in the evening, we were invited for dinner at Fitzwilliam College. Fitzwilliam College is where Mr. Lee Kuan Yew studied law. And during dinner, beside me was an English professor, the quintessential English professor, a long white beard. And he asked me, so you are from Singapore. Tell me, what are the factors which contribute to the economic miracle of Singapore? So I told him, firstly, I'm not an economist, I'm a psychiatrist. Secondly, I think the success of Singapore has to do with the human mind. Human mind. And 2 factors in the human mind, creativity and mental resilience. So you think about it, Singapore in the last 52 years, it's more creativity. People are resilient. Even in our program, we have to be creative, think of new ideas, so people become more resilient and they grow older. I remember also sometime in 1965, I was studying my O-level in Batu Pahat, and one day my father came back home and told me, son, you turn on television, something important coming up, So I turned on television. Batu Pahat, 100 miles from here, it was very, very snowy. I saw the Prime Minister crying, weeping on television, telling the world press that Singapore has seceded from Malaysia. During dinner time, my father was a bit concerned, not because of business here, but because he has sisters here, cousins here. And we wonder whether this place could survive without a hinterland, without fresh water. My mother was more sanguine, and she said if they have some good ideas and a few good men, they can survive. And what she said, a few good ideas, creativity, a few good men, mental resilience, they can survive. Now the economists have put all this together into a new construct. They call it mental capital. And mental capital has to do with cognitive emotional resources, besides just creativity and resilience, about learning, relationship, or work, and giving back to the community. This is a new idea that came up from economists, I think. And it's very important for us to know that the success of Singapore is because of mental capital. We don't have oil or anything, it's mental capital. And it's important in terms of the dementia prevention. They have creativity, but also in terms of giving back, in terms of community life. There's a tide in the affairs of men, which means that in our life, there are some opportunities that come. If we don't do anything to it, we will be inundated by the flood. There's also, in Act 1, Scene 2, a line that says, "The fault, dear Brutus, lies not in our stars, but in ourselves." Meaning that if we are inundated with the problems, we cannot say, oh, it's not my fault, it's the stars. Jupiter is not aligned with Mars. Therefore, I have this problem. There's something that we can do. And a month ago, I was giving a talk at National Gallery, and I showed them a painting. And someone told me, is that called The Rising Tide? Well, it is about the rising tide, but it's something that I want to share with you again, and some of you have seen it. It's a privilege to see it the second time. This is the most expensive painting in Singapore, and I happen to own it. All right, and it's called The Undefeated Mind. I'll tell you how I come to own it. And when I was a trainee in England in 1978, exactly 40 years ago, I was told that I must be assessed before I become a psychiatrist by this famous psychiatrist in North London called Anna Freud, the daughter of Sigmund Freud. But it was very expensive because Anna Freud would only see the rich and famous, the celebrities. So my consultant told me, then do a painting, and then we will assess the mind of a Chinese doctor from Batu Pahat. So they asked me, what is this all about? So I told them, well, it's about the rising tide. And what is this? This is the family. The family is where we nurture love and respect untarnished by greed or envy. This is very important. And you ask me, what is this tree? Well, it's an oak tree, a tree of values, where you learn trust, moral courage, integrity. And these are very important. The flood might come up, but you're on high ground, able to take on the impending storm. And this is also an undefeated mind as we take on difficult problems in early years. Many people will not believe what we're doing, but many of you here believe what we're doing and donate to us, and many volunteers come on board. I want to thank all of you for all your generosity, and I want to thank my team. Many of the things that I've said is in this book called Colors of Aging. It's available in the foyer. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, after the lecture at Cambridge, we had dinner at Fitzwilliam College. At the end of the dinner, I was walking back to the hotel with Professor John Copeland, who was the leader of the World Health Team. And John asked me a most searching question. He asked me, do you think the success of Singapore is because of one man? I paused for a while and I told him, the success of Singapore is because of the leaders and the people. And we are the people. Thank you.